blocking might help. It's acrylic. I don't know, I'm just not very happy with the hands. As you can see, it looks a bit, Hi guys, and welcome to the 4th episode of the Peach&Paige Podcast. My name's Jenna. I am the owner and designer of Peach&Paige. Today is the 4th of October 2019, and I am coming to you from a beautiful spring day here in the Adelaide Hills in South Australia, where I live with my husband and my 3 kids. It's school holidays at the moment, so for those of you that have watched my podcast before would know that I usually do this while my youngest is napping, which he is. However, I do have my girls home with me today, so they may be popping their heads in a little bit later and saying hi, because you know what kids are like these days. They are obsessed with YouTube, and mummy has a YouTube channel, so they are absolutely dying for the opportunity to be on the internet. So I did promise them that a bit later on. So yeah, if you are joining me for the 2nd, 3rd, 4th time, thank you so much for coming back. I'm glad you're enjoying the podcast. And if you're joining me for the first time, welcome. I hope you really enjoy my podcast and the content today. And if you do, please do hit the like and subscribe button. That would be fantastic. I'm a crochet and knitwear designer for Peach&Paige, as I said. So I'll put my website down here at the bottom. But you can also find me on Etsy, Instagram, and there was one other one I put up and now I forgot. Facebook. Facebook. So you can find me on all those places as well as Peach&Paige. I was going to mix things up today and sit outside for a little bit because it's stunning outside. We've finally got some days in the 20s, so it's beautiful spring weather, and I was going to sit outside, but the good locations to sit in had direct sunlight, and it was sort of washing out my camera, and I think I was going to get a little bit hot. I'm quite stuffy in here as it is, so I decided I would take up my usual spot in front of my yarn wall, which you will I guess see it's changing up every podcast with different spots being filled up. So yeah, we are back inside today, but I do hope at some stage to sort of mix things up a little bit and play around with some other places in my home that I can film this from. But for now, this is still the best spot and the best light. So I think that's about it for my introduction. So grab your beverage, grab a whip, and sit back, and I hope you enjoy today's podcast. So without further ado, last week was obviously the week of finished objects. I finished all the things. Oh, the light went all funny. It's going to be it's overcast today, and so sometimes it's sunny and then the clouds come over, so you might see the shades adjusting a little bit today. Yeah, so last podcast was the podcast of finished items. I smashed a whole lot of stuff out, and I think I even mentioned in my last podcast that now I'd finished all this stuff, I was going to have nothing for this week, and that's what's happened. So I have been flat out this week. That being said, I've done knitting or crochet every single night, because obviously I work during the day most days. But I do not have a single finished item to show you this week. But that being said, I have heaps of whips, some you've seen before, some that are new, and some new yarn and other little bits and pieces that I want to show you as well. So I'm not too worried. I think we're still going to easily fill in my sort of 45 plus minutes of yarn chat. I am also going to be doing a giveaway in this podcast, so if you do stick around, I will be announcing that later on, what you need to do to enter that one. It's just going to be a pattern giveaway at this stage. I haven't collaborated with anybody else yet, so it will just be a Peach&Paige pattern giveaway, but I'll be announcing the terms and conditions for that one later on. So The first whip that I want to show you today is one that I have shown you before. I believe it was possibly the, was it my first podcast? Might have been my first podcast or maybe my second. I'm starting to lose track already. And that is, so it's still a whip. I was hoping to get this one finished for today's podcast, but sure enough, that did not happen because I had to readjust the pattern a bit more than what I originally anticipated. So I didn't get it finished last night like I hoped, but this is my my Jack Skellington that I've been working on. So obviously I've still got to do his eyes, but I've done a lot of the construction now. So when I showed you guys this last time, I'd sewn all the pieces, but I hadn't constructed or put anything together yet. So I've started putting him together, and I've put wire. So he has got wire in him so that he can be moved around, because this is a gift for an adult, not a child. So I wanted something that was going to be posable. So a few things I still want to play around with on this one. I'm not like entirely happy with it. Oops, I hit my tripod. I'm not entirely happy with it. The hands, I followed this pattern originally, and since then, it's all out of whack now. I'm not happy. Okay, that'll do. And since then, I've adjusted the pattern quite a bit myself, because I really wasn't very happy with it. I'm not happy with the hands either. They curl up. I don't know if you can see very well. It's better. So yeah, they sort of, they curl. But I sort of wanted them to sort of stand up a little bit more. Like you can see that one's particularly bad. His fingers sort of curl over like he's got really bad arthritis. So I might take the hands out and find another way to do better hands. I also did the legs. He's got one leg still to go. The legs originally, I don't think I brought the original one over, but they were really thick. They were almost the same thickness as his body, and it was like, I don't know. It didn't make sense. So I redid the legs the same width as his arms, because Jack Skellington is quite sort of long and lanky and things like that. So that is what I did for that. So I've got one leg still to do, his eyes on, his little felt collar that I have to do too, and yeah, work out what I'm going to do about the hands. I don't know if I guess I could probably starch them and make them all nice, like make them so they're all nice and stiff. Even just blocking might help. It's acrylic. I don't know. I'm just not very happy with the hands. As you can see, it looks a bit, yeah. But yeah, so that's the first whip. So haven't got it finished, but at least I've got some progress on him. And the face I've just stitched with the black yarn that I used, and just sort of roughly into shapes. Obviously they're his nostrils, and he does actually have quite large eyes, which I'll be doing out of felt. So yeah, that's my Jack Skellington so far. I'm just gonna grab a water. And that one, that was just made in paint box, a runway, I think, with a 4mm hook. So the stitches were a little bit tighter than you normally would for a runway. Reason being is it's being stuffed, and as I've mentioned previously, I always go down a hook size or two for the yarn when I'm making stuffed items, so that the stuffing doesn't show through. So whip 1. Whip 2 is also one that you've seen before. So this was one that I introduced last podcast. So this is my sort of my personal little knitting project, and I'm absolutely in love with how it's looking so far. I think it's a bit tangled up here. All right, so so this is my t-shirt. So where I was last podcast was this progress marker. So last podcast, I'd literally just done this strip along the bottom. Up, it's a bit hard because it's rolling, but up to where that stitch marker was. So since then, we've bound off the collar. So that sits across like that. And I've completed this shoulder. It's all a bit bunched up because it's on a stitch keeper at the moment. But there's a full shoulder there. So the shoulder's about where that stitch marker is. So it sits like that. And then it goes down the side, because I'll put a picture up probably here, but so it was straight across the top, and then had a nice like sort of a deep V back at the back of the shoulders. So I've worked the deep V at the back. So that was this really nice cast off, which I hadn't done before, which goes all the way down, so the back V seam. And then put those stitches onto a stitch keeper, and now working on the second sleeve shoulder piece. So it's been really good. I've learned heaps of new things already doing this. So as I mentioned last podcast, I did a provisional cast on with a crochet hook, which I'd never done before. I've the bind off that I did for the I keep saying the collar neck hole was one I hadn't done before, and that was, I think, knit two, I think it was knit two, and then slip them back onto the left hook, and then knit them together through the back loop or something. It was something along those lines, which has created a really nice, almost like corded sort of bind off, which is really nice. Obviously it rolls because of the stockinette, so but that will block out significantly, but it's still going to have that nice sort of rolled finish on it. The edge was similar, sort of slipping and knitting two together for my decreases and increases in down the V. So yeah, it's been really, and short rows. So there was some short row stitches. So I did some German short row stitches for shaping in the shoulder. So you can see that there was 4, because obviously this hasn't been blocked yet. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4 short rows. So short rows are a way of sort of squeezing an extra row in, I guess, in between 2 points to create shaping. So that's to help shape that shoulder. I'm hoping that it's going to block out, because obviously you're not meant to be able to see it, but you can see sort of quite easily where I did the wrap and turn sort of technique for those short rows. So but I think it'll block out hopefully all right. Yeah, you can see them there. But for my first attempt doing it, not too bad, pretty happy with it. So yeah, I've worked on that mostly, not this week, but the week before. That was sort of my main project, and I'm quite happy with how much I got done. I was determined to have something significant to show you for this time. So I'm guessing, I haven't had a good read forward through the pattern, but once the shoulders are done, it'll get joined. These will join together in the back, obviously to make your neck hole. And then I'm guessing we will either do the sleeves, or I don't even know if it has sleeves, but then we'll re-pick up the provisional cast on and then work down for how long I want it. So that's, yeah. It'll look nice once it's all blocked out. I think it will be a tiny bit see-through because I can see my top through it now, but might just be one I have to wear a little cami under. So that one was made in 4-ply merino. Peyton's, where is it? I've got some here. That one, Peyton's Dreamtime merino. baby 4-ply, beautiful pure merino wool. So I went through in the last podcast as to why I decided to make a summery t-shirt in merino. So if you are interested a bit more into why I chose this particular fibre, by all means feel free to have a look at my previous podcast for a bit more information as to my thought process there. Yes, so that was whip number 2. So whip number 3 is a new design. So while I really should have been focusing probably on finishing these things, I am notorious for when I think of a design or see something that I like and I want to create it, I need to do it then and there. I think I've mentioned that in previous podcasts before, which is why I end up with so many whips on the go and none of them finished off. I was pretty happy that last podcast I managed to smash out a whole bunch of finished objects, and I sort of felt like I sort of cleared my pipeline a little bit. My friend's gotten on my back too because she could see that I was just getting more and more whips going on. And so she sat me down and she's like, okay, Jenna, what are we going to do? When are we going to finish these off? And I was meant to get Jack Skellington finished today, so I'll have to do that after this podcast, hopefully. Sorry, Yelena. And then I've got to do my cactus pillow, and I'll talk about that at the end when I do my shop updates. But anyway, so I have a plan of things I'm going to get finished, and then I think of a new design, and it gets slotted in there because it needs to be done straight away, you know, and everything else gets pushed down the list. So that being said, I have spent a significant amount of time in the last fortnight working on my new pattern. So I'm going to show you a few different versions of this pattern. It's not finished, but it's not like some big secret, so I'm not worried about sort of showing you the ins and outs of it. It's going to be a cotton pattern for summer because obviously the weather's warming up and I only have one real sort of summer garment pattern that I've written up, and that's the boho crop. So I've wanted to get some more summery stuff written up, which was the reason for this one. So the first one I made, basically what I wanted to do was sort of and I don't know what you'd call it, and by all means feel free to comment below what you think you would call these, but a sort of I guess a kimono / short sleeve cardigan / sleeved vest. I don't know. So like a cotton sort of top, but one that is open at the front and is short sleeved. So working in cotton. So I made this one first, which I think I've shown you a sneak peek of the fabric, in paint box cotton. The sides would have been sewn up, so you had your little armhole. So very, very simple pattern. And this is the toddler size. I'm just sort of showing you on me to give you an idea. But so have your little armholes and like a nice sort of little collar at the front and a nice long little vesty kimono thing. I might even put a picture in up here of what it looks like on the mannequin. I wasn't happy with the shape. It was really looking quite boxy. It wasn't draping as nicely as I wanted. I sort of had in my mind that I wanted something that was going to be really flowy and drapey, and I just was not getting that out of this. The cotton doesn't help. Paintbox cotton isn't this the finest, softest cotton. It is a bit more sturdy, I suppose you would say. So it didn't sort of wasn't really quite working out how I wanted it to. So I scrapped that, which is why I haven't finished it, but I haven't frogged it yet because I still wanted to be able to compare it, but I will frog it because there was a good like 4 balls of cotton in there. So I've got to frog that and salvage it. So I knew I wanted to change my design a bit. So instead of having a back and the front panels, and having them join down the sides. I wanted to go for more of a wraparound with armholes, so it would create more of a collar type look. And I bought some Flinders cotton. I know I've mentioned Flinders cotton before. I really like the Flinders cotton from Spotlight, and so I bought this cotton, which is a variegated self-striping sort of cotton. Focus you. There we go. So beautiful oranges, yellows, and sort of a light peachy colour. And I thought, you know what, this is different. This is really not the sort of colours that I normally use. So I thought, well, this would be great for a bit of an experiment. And so I thought I would use this for take number 2. And so I did, and I was really happy with the yarn to start with, but then the more I worked it up, I'm not normally a fan of variegated yarn. Oh my god, I'm so hot in here. I'm not normally a fan of variegated yarn unless it's hand dyed. If it's hand dyed, it's nice because it's random enough that it doesn't plan pull, whereas your machine dyed or factory dyed yarn isn't quite as sporadic, and no matter what your pattern is, you almost will always end up with like a planned pulling type look to it, which I don't like the look of. I find it looks a bit cheap. So I was happy with this for the first few rows, and then once I started getting a pattern in it, I sort of fell out of love with it. But that's where I'd got with it. So it goes up that way. Obviously you can see I've got my sleeve inserted there. We'll talk about that in a minute. So we've now gone, as opposed to having it worked this way with a back panel and 2 front panels, it's now worked this way in a single piece that will wrap all the way around, with the sleeves now worked in. So that was shape number 2, and like I said, once I realized that I wasn't happy with the variegated, so you can see how it like you get, it's not random, like it's like becomes spotty and weird stripes. Like you can see how planned it is at the top, like look at that. And so I just sort of fell out of love with it a bit. I liked it to begin with, but then the more I worked on it, the more I was like, ugh, no. Looks a bit too much like something grandma would make for my liking, as opposed to a expensive garment. So I only got about halfway through that, but at least with this project I got my design and my drape right. So I was really happy with my drape when this was sitting on the mannequin. I liked how the cuff fell, and so I knew then I was on the right track. So I put this aside knowing that I wasn't going to be happy with it and I'll probably frog it, but at least now I knew what I wanted to do. Another design element that I've decided on as well, because this is sort of a boho-y type thing, is this nice little bobble edging. And so the colour, I went for a beigey one because I was trying to sort of match something that would look good, but like I said, I'm going to be scrapping this now anyway. But I went with a nice bobble edge. This was an edging, there's a YouTube tutorial for this one. There's quite a few actually. It's really simple. The one I followed was Bella Coco. I'll put the link down below. So yeah, I decided I wanted a nice little bobble edging, so that's on my sleeve. And yeah, so that was take number 2. That looks like, there you go. Now you can sort of see how the sleeve would sit, because this was a toddler size. So yeah, so that was my second take. And then I thought, okay, let's go back to single colour. And so I wanted to make something that would fit one of my daughters, because obviously this is a bit more of a feminine design, so there was no point making something in a toddler size because my son wouldn't model it for me. So that's when I started working on this. Again, not a color I would normally go for, but I'm so happy I did. And I hope the color shows up okay. It looks a lot more red on my camera right now, so I don't know what it's going to look like when I edit it, but it's actually quite a maroony sort of wine color, like a nice maroon red winey shade. It's beautiful. Once again, this is just Flinders cotton, which was on special, so it was like $2.50 a ball for 500 grams. This pattern is a bit of a yarn eater, so this is going to be the size 4 to 10, I think, and I've not quite got halfway, and I've used 3 balls now, I think. So it's going to be like a 7 or 8 ball project. But when you consider, if you're able to pick the balls up for like $2.40 a ball, or even $2.50 a ball, so that's $5, that's still $20 for a top, which you wouldn't be able to buy it for that. So it's not like, and it's an expensive item still to make. And you can see my cut in sleeve there. So obviously I haven't actually made my sleeve yet. I've just cut in my sleeve hole. So I've got my hole there, and then I'll then start re-picking that up and create my sleeve. So what I might do, so you can see how it actually sits and drapes. I'll get my daughter to come in because I know that she wants to be in the podcast. So I'll get her to come in. I'm going to put it on her, you know, the 1/2 a sleeve that I've got, so you can see how the collar drapes and get a bit of a better idea of how it's going to sit. So I'm going to pause the camera and organize that, and I will be back in a sec. Bye. Okay, so this gives you a bit of a better idea of the vest. So you can see it's sort of got a bit of drape at the side. Paige, can you just face that way for me, please? Turn your body. You got this? Right. Lift your arm up. Yeah. So obviously that's how the armhole sits. You can put your arm back down, darling. Okay. And so we've got some nice drape at the front, and obviously once we've got the sleeve put in, then we will finish it. So yeah, I've got, face the wall for me. Face the wall. So yeah, I've only just gone just behind the back. So that will go across the back and obviously repeat on the other side. So you can face me again, darling. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, so that had much nicer drape than the original one. So I was really quite happy with how that's gonna sit and play out. So I will move back inside, and Paige, you can say bye to everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, I'm back. That was really hard to film. She's so excited that she's now officially in my podcast. So yeah, that was my my middle daughter Paige, who's just about to turn 7. So she's very excited. So yeah, that is my my current work in progress. So that one obviously will also have sleeves built in, and then I will be doing that bobble edging around the sleeves as well as around the bottom hem. I haven't worked out what colour will be best for the hem yet. I'm thinking perhaps like a light grey. If you've got any suggestions, feel free to comment below, because yeah, I'm really not sure what would be a nice contrast colour for that wine shade. I was originally going to do white, but I think white's going to be a little bit too crisp. So perhaps a cream even, or a light grey would look really nice. I haven't quite worked it out yet, but I'm hoping to get that one out fairly soon. For my followers here in Australia, if you wanted to make those, it will be in toddler size through to adult. I'm going to make myself one in pure white, or light grey. I was going to do light grey, but then there was no light grey at Spotlight, which is where I get this particularly cotton from. So I bought a bunch of white, but I'm a bit iffy about white with 3 kids, and it's just going to get dirty and thrashed. So I might have to go shopping and see if I can find any more light grey somewhere, because I think that'll be better. That is it for whips. So like I said, no finished objects. I've just been mainly working on obviously the kimono, because I've done like 3 drafts of it, and done heaps of my t-shirt, and then worked on Jack Skellington. That's about it. So I yeah, that's it for whips. Next is we will talk about just some new things that I've gotten. So the first one that I want to talk about, and now I've lost it. Where did it go? Oh no! Oh no! I have all my things next to me to talk about, and I've lost it. Oh. Well, that's convenient. What do I do with it? Okay, I'll show you the two that I do have, and then the other one I will have to insert a picture because you've probably seen it on my Instagram already. But I won a Instagram competition a little while back, a few weeks ago, from Pinpoints. I'll put their link down here, that make amazing crafty pins. And I've started my little collection. So I bought a pin from them a few months back. The one that I bought originally was this one here. So knitter. And it came in a 2-pack with one that was similar but that said crochet. So I gave that one to my best friend. So we had one each. And so then when I saw that they were doing a giveaway, I entered and I tagged everyone that I knew or didn't know, or just anyone that I had on Facebook. So I'm sorry if I tagged you in that and you didn't want to be, but I won 2 more pins. So the pins, you probably have seen this one. I have to keep rearranging it because this dress that I'm wearing, the fabric is so light, it's not staying upright. But I've got this one. Let's see if I can show you without having to take it off. So knit pearl, some little knitting needles. So I've got that one on. And the other one I had, oh, hold on, I found it. 2 seconds. Ta-da! The other one I had, which I've already put on Instagram, is this one, Caffeinated and Crafty. Oh, come back. Which I relate to greatly because I live on coffee and craft. So yes, so I think I'm going to start a little bit of a collection, to be honest, because I'm quite liking these. I need to get some nice project bags so I can start putting my pins on my crochet bags. Not that I don't mind wearing them, but unless I'm going to like a knitting or a yarn festival or something like that, I feel a bit weird wearing them. So I wouldn't mind having a project bag or something that I can put them on. So I'm going to keep collecting my pins because I quite like the idea. And other new acquisitions. So I mentioned that I got a whole bunch of Flinders cotton because it was on special, and I showed you the orange one that I got, which I liked the colour of, but I didn't like how it plan pulled. I got one in pink as well, which I think I think it's probably going to do the same thing. It doesn't have as many shades. It's a bit more subtle in its shade. But I think it's going to do that same plan pulling. These work really well on like my my bib, my textured bib. Anything that's got lots of different stitches, because the breakup of the stitches is what stops it pulling. So with my vest, because it was a lot of just rows of DC, 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 that's when it starts plan pulling, because obviously you're using the same amount of yarn every row and the yarn is striped evenly, so it works out the same. So a project where your rows aren't continuous and identical, these sort of yarns will be better for, especially if you're trying to avoid that plan pooling type effect that I was getting with that the kimono vest thing. The other one I've got, which I'm pretty excited to try, I can't remember what this one's called. I feel like it was called Peacock or Tropical or something, was this one. It's gorgeous colours, but I don't know how it will look worked up. But it's got enough colours in there that hopefully it wouldn't plan too much. I'd like to try one of my bibs in this. So my friend recently made a bib in, not this one, but there's a Flinders Prince that's just shades of blue. and the bib looks amazing, and it's the color changes are all random, and it's really nice. So this one might be a good contender for something like that if you want something a bit different than your usual pastels. So I don't know, I might whip one up to see what it looks like, because those bibs are so quick to make. I showed you one, I think, in my last podcast that I did in pastel rainbow. So yeah, good. Other yarn. So I did a Love Crafts order since last podcast, and that's when I tend to stock up on stuff. So I've started to think about Christmas because, you know, don't hate me, but it is getting bloody close. And I want to, as well, most years I make stuff, but I definitely want to make some stuff this year again. Oh, it feels like it's got a hard center in it. Sorry. Distracted. So I want to make some socks for people this year because I've jumped on the sock bandwagon with the last set of socks I've made. I want to make some more socks. So I wanted to stock up on some sock yarn, which I did. So I got some sort of self-striping yarn, but unlike the Flinders one, it's a bit more sporadic. What ones did I get? Got 4. Okay, so these were the 4 that I got. So they're all this one. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but it's a 4-ply, and it's a wool, 75% virgin wool, 25% polyamide, which is nylon. So I got these 4 colors. So I've got like I'll show you one by one. So I want to do with these socks, and I don't know how many I'm going to make or who I'm going to make them for yet, but I wanted to whip out, lost my tag, a couple pair of socks, and I wanted to do a contrast heel, toe and cuff, so I haven't done that before. So I wanted a nice self-striping or like a variegated yarn for the main sock, and then a nice contrast yarn for heel, toe and cuff. So I also got some Lang yarns, which I've worked with before, in their sock base, which again is 75% virgin wool and 25% polyamide or nylon. So it's the exact same fiber as this one, which is great. That looks really, really neon in my camera. I don't know what it's going to look like when I put it up on YouTube, but it's more of a, it's a fuchsia pink. It doesn't look quite as neon as it's showing up on that camera. But so I had to try work out what I was going to put with what. But I'm thinking maybe these 2. I don't know what this one will look like worked up, because it's not striping, it's actually spotty. And you can see on the picture, that's sort of how the spots are going to look. So I'm thinking maybe those 2, which will look cute. And then I got this nice turquoise, sort of a green one, which I was thinking I was just going to do with a black. I did get a green, but the green was way too turquoise for the, like, it just didn't match any of these colours in here. So I'll probably just go for a black contrast on that one. And then I was probably going to use the pink again for this one, which is another stripe with black, purples and pinks in there with the pink, which looks nice. And then lastly, I had this one, which looks really nice. And I was probably just going to do that with a cream. So yeah, I don't know what pattern I'm going to do yet. I might do a couple of patterns. I don't want to do just plain vanilla socks, but I'm also aware that I'm on a time constraint and I am not the fastest knitter in the world, and I don't want to become stuck and have sleepless nights working up to Christmas stressing about socks. I was contemplating whether I would talk about socks in this podcast, because I thought, oh no, what if people watch my podcast? And I thought, you know what, none of my family probably watches this podcast, so it's okay. Shh, don't tell them. So I think I should be safe. and I won't drop names. So even if you are watching this and you think that you might be a contender for getting some of my socks this year, I'm not going to tell you which ones you're going to get. The other yarn that I got in this purchase, every time I purchase from Lovecrafts, I try get a different brand, which is why I end up with such a random amount of yarn and very little yarn in any given color. But I got 4 each of these, and because I love my Flinders cotton, I don't really like my paint box cotton as much as the Flinders. It's a bit stiff. So I thought, all right, I'm gonna splurge and try a different cotton and see how that compares. And I got this, which is a Rico Essentials, and I've used their merino before. It's not, I wouldn't say it's budget, but it's not an expensive brand. They are fairly standard, but the cotton is so unusual. It's really, really shiny. I don't know how well it's going to show up on the camera, but it feels lovely, but it's got absolutely no halo or fuzz to it. It's very silky. Is probably the best way to explain it. Incredibly silky. So I'm interested to see what that looks like worked up, because it's hard to imagine. But I want to work on a new bonnet pattern, so I'm thinking maybe using this baby blue for a cotton bonnet. So yeah, I got the baby blue and like a nice sort of dusty pink, sort of matches my hair. Yeah. So we'll see. It's interesting. I'll keep you updated when I get around to working on it, and let you know what I think. So it's 50 grams, 50 gram balls, 130 meters, pure 100% cotton. I can't remember what I paid. It was on special, which is why I grabbed it. So it was cheaper than what it would normally be. But like I said, it was Rico Essentials isn't necessarily an expensive line anyway. Yeah. So that's that. I think that's our bit about it for acquisitions. Shop updates. So like I said, I'm going to get Jack Skellington done, but that's not really shop related. I still want to get the cactus done, so I've set myself a deadline for my cactus pillow, which you would remember from last podcast, the podcast before, my dancing cactus. So I've got my yarn for that ready to go. It should be a fairly quick and easy one. I've just got to tweak the graft because I want to make it a little bit bigger. It's double stranded in acrylic, so it doesn't take long to do, and then I just stuff it. So I'll get that one. One will definitely be done by next podcast, so it'll be released before then. I hope to get, by my next podcast, the whole top of my t-shirt done, so have it completely joined at the back, and started to work on the body. I want to have at least one of my kimono finished. The kimono is still probably a good month or so away from being released, but I want to at least get the size done and start taking photos of the steps and putting a pattern together. Because there is going to be quite a few sizes, and it is a bigger project, and because I need to make samples of at least half the sizes, I like to make at least every second size, to make sure that I'm scaling it up correctly. I will, that one's going to be a bit time consuming, but I also want to try get it out before the weather gets too warm here in Australia. So for those of you that are wanting it as a summer project, can do so. I need to get back onto my leg warmers as well. So as soon as I finish my cactus, my next pattern to be released is the leg warmers. So I need to properly start working on that and not start any more projects. I probably will. Next podcast, I'll be like, oh, I've got like 3 new designs I'm working on. No, I've really got to try clear out my backlog of whips. So I'm hoping next podcast will be finished, as opposed to this one, which is all just whip. But I feel like that might be how it goes. I'm gonna have a whip podcast, and then my next fortnight will be a finished podcast, and vice versa. This is gonna go back between the two. So before I go any further, my next thing I wanted to do was introduce my eldest daughter. So I wanted to bring her out today. We showed her Pinterest during the week, and she's always been a big one for stealing my yarn. She knows that all this yarn here is all my old Marvel yarn, which I was going to be getting rid of, and she has about half of it down in their lounge room anyway, is all hers to take. So she's constantly coming in, do you have an orange, do you have a red? And I mean, I had every colour of the rainbow, so I usually always had something, though she is starting to go through my stash quite significantly. Anyway, we showed her Pinterest, and she doesn't know how to knit or crochet yet. I have tried to teach her without success. I haven't tried in a while. I really want to try again. I was about her age when I first learnt to knit and crochet, so I'd like for her to do it. I think she'd really enjoy it. She's a very crafty person, but she doesn't know how to make pom-poms, and that's what she's been doing. And she uses the Clover pom-pom makers, which I don't have one handy on me. I'll put a picture up here of what they look like if you've seen them before. They're great. I love them. I really, really recommend them. They come in a number of sizes. They make making pom-poms so much easier. I can't believe I used to do it the old way with the circle of cardboard. Oh my gosh. So I'm making my pom-poms like that now, and I showed her how to do it. And she's been looking on Pinterest, and obviously with Halloween coming up, everything crafty is all Halloween crafty at the moment. And so she came out wanting orange and green yarn because she was going to be making some pumpkins, and I promised her that I would let her show off her yarn crafts in my yarn craft podcast, because obviously it's very much relevant to the topic that we are discussing. So I'm going to pause the camera again and bring my daughter out with her creations, and she can have a bit of a chat to you about what she's been working on in the yarn world. Won't be long. Okay, we're back. Okay, so I would like to introduce you to my eldest daughter. This is Talia.
I made these like pumpkin pom-pom things, and all you have to do is get this like pom-pom makers, and I think you get them from Spotlight.
You can get them at Spotlight, yep.
And I've been using them to make like little pom-poms, big pumpkin pom-poms, and I've been trying to make lots so on Halloween I can put them around my lounge room or in my room to make them look Halloweeny.
How are you going to hang them up?
I'm just going to put them around the room.
Like just stick them on the wall?
No, just going to like place them on my shelf and stuff.
Okay.
And yeah.
Do you have any more that you're going to make?
Yeah.
You're not out of wool yet?
No, not out of wool yet.
Okay.
I got like a big ball yet left.
And so how did you find out about how to make these? What gave you the idea?
I looked on this app called
Pinterest.
Yeah, Pinterest. And it I looked at Halloween decoration pom-poms, and it showed like some Frankenstein, Dracula, like pumpkins, and they all had eyeballs and stuff, and I have this one still in my lounge room. It was my first go. It has like an eyeball and hot glue everywhere. And that just got me the idea, and I thought maybe I should do a few to get the idea and make like 1 billion of them. And I'm going to give some to some people in my family. And yeah.
And you've enjoyed making them?
Yeah.
Yep. You're going to learn how to knit and crochet like Mum?
Yeah.
Yeah, one day?
Mm-hmm.
You like making things, don't you? your little
Yeah.
maker. Lovely. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us on my podcast today, and we may have you back next time you make something yarny. Say bye to everybody.
Bye.
Okay, I'm back. Thank you for watching my kids. They're very excited to be a part of my podcast, and at least Talia is making something that's yarny, so it sort of fits in. So she, I can see her following in her mummy's footsteps. So she is 9 and about to start term 4 of year 3, and growing up before my eyes. So very proud of her. Giveaway. So I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that I was going to do a pattern giveaway in my podcast today, which I still want to do. So it's going to be very straightforward. It's going to be purely a podcast only competition. So what I'm wanting you to do is obviously you'll need to be a subscriber and have liked today's podcast in order to enter, and I also need you to put a comment down below as well. So I'll sort of scratching my brain as to what topic that we should discuss, and I'd be really interested because obviously you're watching this podcast, I'm guessing because you've got an interest in either knitting or crochet. But being a crafter, and I know myself as a crafter, I'm constantly delving into other crafts as well. So I'd love to know what else people are interested in. So you can, to enter, obviously like and subscribe, and also comment below either what craft you also do other than knitting or crochet, or what craft you would like to learn to do other than knitting and crochet. So you might want to learn how to do weaving, or me, for example, I'd love to learn how to do yarn dyeing. That's on my goal list. I'd also like to learn a bit more. I'd like to play around with some embroidery, doing some embroidery circles. So whether it be cross stitch or what have you, which I used to do a bit when I was younger as well. So they're sort of the two that I'd like to explore. So yeah, by all means, to enter, you just have to leave a comment with what craft or making activity you do or would like to learn to do, other than knitting and crochet. And then would like and subscribe. I will announce the winners next fortnight. The winner will get 3 free patterns of your choice from my store. So when I announce the winners next podcast, I will get in contact with you. It'll just be random, so it's not going to be based on what comment you put. The comment's purely just to enter you, and then it will just be a random draw by what number comments you are, basically. And yeah, see the winner or winners, I haven't decided, I might do a couple depending on how many people comment, and yeah, I'll contact you and you can let me know what 3 patterns that you would like, and I can email those PDFs through to you. So that's my little giveaway. So I think that's about it for all knitting stuff. I think we've really tidied this up quick today. This is definitely going to be a 45-minute episode. Personal stuff, there's not really been a lot going on. Obviously we've got school holidays at the moment, so that tips everything up in the air. I've had a few days off work for school holidays, because obviously we do have the option of taking the kids to vacation care, but it can be quite costly. And when I've got a fair bit of annual leave up my sleeve, it just sort of made sense to take some time off work. So I've had the last 2 days off and spent some time with the kids, doing some activities and going to cafes and play centres and visiting friends and things like that. So they're off to their dad's tonight, as they usually are on Fridays that I do my podcast. So he'll be picking them up in about an hour. And then Monday is a public holiday here in Australia. So they're staying at their dad's right through now until Monday night. Spend a bit of extra time with him, which is lovely. And I think it's their stepbrother's first birthday this weekend as well. So I think they're going to be having a little bit of a family party for him, which is nice. So I'm down 2 kids for the next 3 days. And the rest of my weekend is probably just going to catch up with my friend again tomorrow night. Which just involves drinking wine and chatting, basically, which sounds just lovely. And doing a bit of house cleaning while the kids aren't here. It's a bit easier to tidy up, clean some clothes out, you know, all that fun mum stuff. And obviously working on my projects, so getting Jazz Skeleton finished, and I really want to work more on my kimono, but I know I've really got to get this bloody cactus done. So I might force myself to do that. It's meant to be stinking hot tomorrow, and by stinking hot I mean like 30. But when it's the first day that's 30 after a long cold winter, it feels like it's 40. And because your body's just not acclimatized to it yet, and it just feels disgusting. Anything over the mid-20s is too hot for me, to be honest. I don't cope well in the heat. I'm definitely cold-blooded in that sense. Would I be warm-blooded? Would cold-blooded people like heat? I don't know. I know I just don't like the heat. So tomorrow will probably be just inside trying to keep cool. Got my nails done. I know I mentioned last fortnight, because I normally get them done every Saturday once a month, and so that falls on every second podcast the day after. So next week my fingers are gonna look manky because they're gonna be one day off getting redone, but I got them done 2 weeks ago ish. Wedding ring's all a bit squiff. So they are nice. I've gone for like a marble feature nail and some gold and grey, and that was nice. So I was quite happy with them. I took my friend with me and she got hers done as well, so it was nice. So I did that, and yeah, I think that's about it. We're in October. Can't believe we're in October. Where has this year gone? Christmas is just around the corner, which is terrifying, and I have not even thought about it yet. I really should. Every year I say that I'm going to be organised, that I'm going to have everything planned out, and I'm going to lay by everything, and I haven't done any of that. So I really should start before I get caught out, because I find Christmas so stressful. I don't enjoy it. But yeah, I think that's about it. So yeah, wrapping up. Please feel free to enter that giveaway. So again, just a case of making sure you're a subscriber, you like this particular podcast, and you leave a comment below telling me what other craft you would like to learn or do already practice. And also, if you like the podcast in general, please do like and subscribe. This is my 4th podcast, so if you are watching for the first time today, there are certainly 3 other podcasts that you're welcome to peruse if you so wish. I think that's about it. I'll put all the links to anyone I've mentioned today or patterns I've mentioned today down below. So they will all be there, and yeah, that's about it. So thank you for watching again today. It was nice, short, sharp and sweet, and I dare say next fortnight I will have a whole bunch of finished items to share with you. If there is anything you want me to bring up in a future podcast, please do drop me a comment either below or on Instagram or Facebook. I'm always happy to take that on and discuss anything in particular that you're interested in any of my podcasts, or any of my patterns that you might be stuck on, or something along those lines that you'd like me to have a chat about. By all means, feel free to drop me a line. I would love to hear from you. So enjoy the rest of your next 2 weeks, and I will see you soon. Bye.